What it do? Welcome back to the Pitch Me Your Thoughts podcast, and it is go time. The World Cup is upon us. First games Thursday this week. Friday, the United States is in action, and I cannot wait. I'm J.J. Buck, joined by my co-host Chris Wehan, an all-conference standout at the University of Mexico, USL Championship member of the Team of the Week. I think a billion times it feels like, and of course his MLS experience. Chris, what's up, man? How you doing?
JJ, I'm pumped, man. I'm pumped. The excitement is real. I can feel it. I can't wait for tomorrow. Can't wait to watch Mexico, South Africa. I'm buzzing. I don't know about you. I don't know if it's the fact that my newborn gave us 5 hours last night or the World Cup starts tomorrow, but I'm pumped and I'm excited to be here and chat with you as always. And tell me what about you? What's your excitement level like?
I think I'm a little bit like Pochettino. Mauricio Pochettino, the head coach of the U.S. men's national team, said this week that now he's feeling it. They had the two friendlies, they had the send-off, they had some full stadiums, in North Carolina and then in Chicago. And he had a quote that, said maybe he was, I'm paraphrasing, kind of a little too far in front, expecting this emotion maybe last year or a year and a half ago. But he's feeling it now. And I think that's legit. Serginho Dest said he was pretty surprised by the level of support after that first friendly against Senegal. And I think it's the realization that we like soccer in this country, but there are times where those moments build. And this is one of those moments where these teams are going to feel it. You mentioned Mexico. It's going to be the same thing. I think it's super unique and interesting that we have three host countries to talk about the energy that's going to be behind these teams.
Yeah, that is an interesting point, and I think it's been fun for me to follow. I'll come back to the U.S. in a second, but it's been fun to see kind of where everyone has located themselves because we are such a big country in the United States, let alone bring in Mexico and Canada to make it challenging. But it's been interesting to see, Spain's in Tennessee, Chattanooga, if I'm right, or I might be wrong, but it's so random. But it's been fun to see how these teams position themselves, their home base, where they'll play games, travel. I know the first game will be in Mexico, so it'll be fun to see the atmosphere. I think that'll bring, the Mexican fans are incredible. They'll bring an atmosphere. So I think this World Cup's going to get kicked off by an unbelievable atmosphere and an amazing game. I think it's going to be two quality opponents that are going to go toe to toe. From the U.S., certainly I don't want to say that American fans are fair weather fans, but I think when it comes to soccer, we are a little bit of fair weather fans. I don't think we know how to fully express ourselves yet. And the fact that we had two games in sold out stadiums, and now we're playing for something, we're playing for the biggest tournament across the world, across any sport. It's on our home soil. I think American fans are certainly showing up and getting excited about that. And I know I feel it. I know you feel it. And I'm certain that that team feels it, especially Pochettino.
How about last night, Argentina, Iceland, in Auburn, Jordan O'Hare Stadium, the Auburn Tigers play. 88,000 people showed up to that game for the last friendly for Argentina. Of course, Messi's involved. He's going to be crazy. But we're talking Alabama, SEC football country, and they got 88,000 people for that game.
Yeah, I think it's been cool to see that blend too. Certainly American football, college football, and I'm sure a lot of these international teams are seeing, wow, what a big deal football is. They're walking into a college football stadium, being like, this is where, college football takes place. And then they're getting 88,000 fans. We've seen that with Messi. The Messi effect is real. Certainly was last night in a friendly, but I think it's going to be like that across the whole tournament. I certainly hope it is.
Yeah, I can't wait to just see the response and the energy for Canada, Mexico, and of course the United States and the stadiums. And let's talk about that real quick. There's been a lot of questions because they're playing in some big time NFL stadiums that have turf. And FIFA required that there be grass surfaces to play the World Cup on. Do you think we're going to see any issues or times where the ball bounces funny with some of these pitches that are laid down?
We will certainly. If you saw, I don't know if there was a video that surfaced of the Senegal national team testing what the ball does in when they played the U.S. in their friendly, and I think that's at the could be wrong, Carolina Panther
Yeah.
Stadium. And they're throwing the ball in the air, and it just dies. It doesn't give you that bounce that it normally would from a surface that's maybe grass all the time. So I think there will be that for me. I don't know what it's like to. I played in one football stadium in my career. I played in Levi Stadium, where the 49ers play. We played a friendly when I was with the San Jose Earthquakes versus Manchester United. It played like a normal field. Some of the best grass I've ever seen. I think that's a stadium that's traditionally grass, so that was part of the reason. But it didn't feel congested. Sometimes when I watch these games, I don't know if you feel this way, JJ. Like Cowboy Stadium, for instance, it feels like the walls are like right next to the sideline. It feels like the game plays a little bit tight, a little narrow. I don't know if the players feel that way, but I think it'll give us a little bit of a different feel than some of these traditional, like the Champions League final when the pitch is massive and PSG's keeping possession of the ball. I think it'll be a little bit more of a battle, a little bit more of a physical fight playing in these football stadiums.
I think it's definitely going to play a factor, just the different surfaces, how they're laid down, how long they're going to be laid down. I know some people are talking about, that video with Senegal and saying, that, well, that's not a World Cup field. Okay, but it's probably not that much of a different process that they used at the other football stadiums to put the turf down. I know we got Boxborough is going to be hosting games. You mentioned, what we're going to see probably at the Cowboys Stadium and then MetLife, the final out there in New Jersey. So it's going to be interesting, and there's going to be different factors involved in all of this. And then it's just on your ability to focus on the task at hand. And it's one where you get into this tournament. And what do you think about the travel aspect of it? You mentioned, we're just sitting here, these teams, which I think it's so fun to see. I saw a video of, like, Senegal. They were like in a mall walking around and looking at shoes, and the dude was like, "Yo, are you with Senegal, the national team?" I was like, "Yeah, I play for them." Or going to a Buc-ee's, right? And then also the fans. That it's been a big thing on social media, seeing all these fans from overseas experiencing all this stuff in the United States. But how do you think the travel factors into this? Because I look down, it's you have the regions, right? You'll have the regions to start, but Vancouver, Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, not too bad. But then the central region: Guadalajara, Mexico City, Monterrey, Houston, Dallas, Kansas City. Out east: Atlanta, Miami, Toronto, Boston, Philadelphia, New York, New Jersey. Those are some trips.
Those are trips. I think I'm just looking at the U.S. for instance. I know we play L.A., Seattle, L.A., and then they're hosting themselves in Newport Beach, I believe, at least somewhere in Orange County. They're training at the Great Park. I think if you're thinking of taking a flight from LA or probably Orange County, if they're staying in Irvine, they're going to be flying out of John Wayne Airport. It's about probably a 2.5 hour flight. I think the thing that athletes really can't complain about too much anymore is I imagine all these teams are going to be taking charter flights.
Yeah.
You walk in, someone scans you, you're on, you're not hoping that someone doesn't sit next to you in the middle seat. It's none of that. So
It's
yeah,
not like traveling back in your Lobo days, right?
no. Well,
How it
those
is
guys
when
aren't going to
it's
be.
you get that Southwest flight if you're lucky to fly, and you're like, oh, what boarding group am I in? And you rush on the plane.
Yeah, you got to fly from Albuquerque to Miami, and so you got to lay over in Vegas. So that adds a whole another 2 hours to your travel. No, it won't be anything like that. I do think the biggest thing that these teams are going to have to contend with is going to be the elements. So like they're going to be at altitude in Mexico City. There's going to be some brutal East Coast weather at some point. And that's where the tactical timeout comes into play. I'm curious to know, JJ, what do you think? Like, obviously, even if you're playing in Jerry's world, you're going to get a break at the 23rd minute mark, 23rd minute mark. I'm curious to know, how do you think that'll play out? You think everyone's going to be pulling the laptops out?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is gonna be interesting because you're gonna have the mandatory hydration breaks. We've already seen, the teams that have been playing some friendlies dealing with the heat, and then all of us in the United States are like, guys, it's not even that hot yet. Like it's gonna get
Yeah,
hotter than this. But then the humidity in some of these places, that just weighs you down. You know that for
yeah,
sure. You mentioned, the altitude that will hit you in the second half. I know we talked about that so many times when we were broadcasting University of New Mexico soccer games. When I was calling you out there on the pitch for the Lobo men or even women's soccer games, we talk about it. Like, all right, 70th minute, 75th minute, what do you have left in the tank? And that's definitely going to pop up in some of these situations. Really, just the setting of the games probably in Mexico at this point. But I think it's going to be interesting with when you have the hydration break in there in each half, how they actually do implement the rules that they're stressing right now. And they've talked about it coming into the tournament, where whether it's a player goes down and then everyone runs to the sideline. They don't want that to happen. They kind of want to keep everyone on the pitch. Throw-ins, goal kicks, 5-second counts there, off-field treatment. So this plays into that, the added time, because you're already getting that hydration break. How strict do you think they're going to be with how long some of these games are going to go?
my guess is you'll see a lot. They'll be really strict at the beginning.
Yeah.
Certainly, I think because you are, and I apologize, not a tactical timeout, but a hydration break that will become tactical timeouts.
Yeah.
Um, it you'll see, coaching, and they're going to be fighting to get these teams back on the field because the coaches this day and age drives me crazy, but they can't not be coaching. So they're going to be coaching, and then the ref's going to be trying to pull the team back on the field. Certainly players are going to get, like you said, there's always cramps in tournament settings like this. These guys are playing a lot of games, but now there will be brutal heat. There's going to be some tough games that these guys are playing in because of the heat, the altitude, the amount of minutes that some players will be asked to play. It's we're going to see a lot of stoppage time, and I know that that's another thing that FIFA and powers that be have been stressing, that the ball's not in play enough. Really, I think there was a study recently that said about 60 minutes the ball's in play. So there was already an emphasis to give more stoppage time to allow for more game to be played. But I'm certain we're going to see some late drama late in games. We're going to see stoppage time goals, and it's going to be interesting in that regard.
I thought that was always interesting, watching the collegiate game. That's one thing I actually liked about it, is the clock was the clock. Like if something happened, you stopped the clock, you got to the 45-minute mark, you knew it was halftime. You got to the 90-minute mark, you knew the game was over. Because I do think that's a challenge right now in professional soccer, is what is added time? When is that whistle going to blow? How much can you see out games? And it brings up the end of games. And with how strict they're going to be, I think I'm with you, man. That first 45 plus, I think they're going to be counting down throw-ins. I think they're going to be counting down goal kicks. But then you get to the end of the game, and I think things are going to open up a little bit, and they might not be as strict. And I had the opportunity to sit down multiple times with Heather Dyke, the awesome
Yeah.
former head coach of the University of Mexico women's soccer team. Now she's coaching the under 23s U.S. women's youth national team. And she actually took me through end of game situations and how they worked on killing off a game. And I thought it was absolutely fascinating. And I think it plays into this when you want the ball on the field more when FIFA right now is talking a big game about, hey, goal kick, throwing, let's go. We want to play. But the things you do at the end of the game, like how much did you guys discuss that in those situations of seeing out a game when you had the lead, or if you just needed to get out with the point?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And, Heather, in the time that I spent around her as well, it was amazing how prepared she was. And that's why she is the coach that she is. She's so organized. And it's no surprise to me that she was willing to sit down and talk to you through the organization of that. I honestly didn't have a lot of coaches that spent a lot of time in that regard of the game. But I think now you're going to have to see more of it. Like, that was obviously a key. Like, hey, we would talk about things like, if you're cramping, go down, like stay on the ground, like get the trainer to come out, slow the game down, ball goes out of bounds, like walk to the ball, goal kick, like take your time, everyone get up, let's bring everyone up. And those were important things to kill off the game. But now I think there's going to be more emphasis on like, where do we keep possession of the ball? Like, do we play the ball in behind, and then do we press, or do we sit? Where do we set our line of confrontation? If we're winning by one goal and we're in the 80th minute, like, where's our line of confrontation? Are we pressing high up the field still, or are we trying to kill the game with possession? Let's get big and let's keep the ball. And I think each opponent will call for different actions, and so I'm sure that that's something that I would hope these coaches, especially Pochettino and his staff, are addressing with the staff, and I love it, because there's nothing worse than playing a country that is phenomenal at wasting time. I'm not going to call out any countries, but we know the ones that are getting injuries, and the game just dies. They're phenomenal at it, and I think it's great to see that FIFA is starting to step up and put protocols into place to say, hey, you can't just go down and take 5 minutes and the trainer spraying your ankle for 3 minutes to try and get you back on the field. No, like, none of that anymore. The ball's got to be in play for you to kill out the game.
What's in that magic spray?
Nothing. I think it's just water.
It's just for looks in there. Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun to watch in the games, because there's been a lot of talk about it and the refs wanting to keep the pace of play going. But, seeing out a game, the little things you do, it's going to play a big factor. And in this tournament, stars are going to rise. We're going to see the best players play at their best. I thought this story was really interesting. And France, of course, is trying to reach their third straight World Cup final. And Ousmane Dembele, who has been absolutely balling, we've seen what he's done at PSG, Champions League. He's got some cred now. And this is a story that I found interesting. I saw it pop up a couple days ago. And Ousmane Dembele, he recently raised the question, he wants to see Kylian Mbappe show greater defensive commitment as to better integrate into the team and their mentality. And I know you're always looking for an edge, especially when you're a team like France, where you've won, you're trying to do something crazy, and that's get back to the World Cup final for the third straight time. But, calling out a player and Kylian Mbappe like that right before the World Cup, that's going to send some shockwaves. It's going to send some waves through the locker room. And you were an attacking midfielder that could play box to box. And that's why I wanted to get your thoughts on this. And yes, the systems might be differently, but what kind of should the expectation be for a striker or a winger that, he's like, hey, I'm here to score goals and finish. But then all of a sudden you have one of his teammates say, hey, maybe put in a little bit more effort.
Yeah, it's a good point. And you said it best. Dembele, he is kind of the guy now with France. Mm-hmm. Not only did he win the Ballon d'Or, but he has won back, two Champions League trophies with PSG. And at the same time, Mbappe was with PSG, leaves, PSG wins 2 Champions League. Madrid struggles. I don't know if they've won a trophy, to be honest. I could be wrong, but I don't know if they've won a trophy with Mbappe. So, no, of course, it's not just Mbappe's fault. But at this tournament, especially when you're going to get into the late stages, the quarterfinals, the semifinals, and the final, no one's going to have the luxury to take any plays off. Certainly, I think Argentina, there was something about the way that they played last year, and when you listen to those players speak, like, they were doing it for Messi. They were literally like giving everything they had for Messi to lift the trophy. And I don't think anyone else has the luxury or has the I certainly don't think Mbappe fuels France to play like that for him. He's a player that can carry them on his shoulders to the final, or carry him through the final like he did last World Cup. But in this day and age, how good everyone is, you can't afford to play a man down defensively, and so I think it's good. And I'm of the belief. My guess is that Mbappe is going to have new life, new motivation because of how difficult things have been at Madrid. For him to get away from that and come to the France national team and play in a World Cup to get back on the world stage, I think he's going to be guns a-blazing. And I don't think I've been in locker rooms. I know that Dembele is what he said wasn't to come at Mbappe, but it was just encouraging him, wanting more from him as a friend.
Yeah, this is one. It's going to be super interesting to watch. They're one of the favorites right behind Spain to win the World Cup, trying to make it 3 World Cup finals in a row. And it's right. It's the effort that you're going to put in. I think about it, maybe this is 2 dudes that jump out, maybe Messi and Ronaldo. You're like, all right, maybe if there's a couple times you don't dig in or get back, maybe your country's going to be okay with that. But it was interesting seeing Dembele bring that out because you're right. Mbappe goes to Real Madrid and it hasn't necessarily been smooth sailing. And now you're coming back with those expectations of the French national team. I think it's been interesting just to watch, the tone that's set by your best players. Even if your best player, is a striker, just those times in the midfield or on a set piece where they position what they're asked to do. It's an edge. It's something that you said it could ignite the other players if they see that.
Definitely. I'm always of the belief, like my style was to lead by example. So if I was running box to box and I felt like someone couldn't, then I felt like I could say something because at least I was doing it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's exactly it. Mbappe, if he's doing it, then everyone will do it. Well, of course I have to do the work because he's our best player and he's doing it. So I think that's what you'll see out of him. I can't imagine that he's going to be taking too many plays off, but you never know. These guys are the best players in the world, and they make a handsome amount of money to play this game. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what's brought out of them on the world stage.
Well, we did see that interesting result just a couple weeks ago with France, with what they had in their last friendly, and they get Senegal to start. They're going to be in the MetLife, New York, New Jersey against Senegal. So that should be a fun one for France. But we're going to get to watch the United States play on Friday night as they get it going against Paraguay. And Group D, you missed our first podcast. We had a lot of good conversation about the group, and now we can focus in on this game. And this is one that these teams lined up in November. It was a little feisty one. The United States won 2-1 in a friendly back then. You saw Paraguay with they're qualifying just 14 goals in 18 matches. It was the lowest total of any automatic qualifier coming out of South America, but they only conceded 10 times. And, as we're talking about seeing out games, the grit that's needed, Christian Roldan said that, quote, I think being a little bit more savvy, being too honest at times is probably too much of a fault for us, end quote. And that is regarding the stuff you're talking about. Going down, going into somebody, taking some time. When you hear that from Roldan, kind of what goes through your mind as you're getting ready to play, what is going to be a really gritty opponent?
Yeah, I think a quote that you saw from Pochettino as well after the Germany game was, we're not talking tactics. Before you can talk any of that stuff, you have to talk about culture. And I think certainly what we've seen from him and the squad and what he set the tone with the group is just to have that culture of working hard, of pushing yourself, of demanding more from everyone on the field. And we saw it. I don't think, the way that we approached the game, like the way we just approached the game with a professional mindset, in my opinion, both versus Senegal and versus Germany. And I think it's finally starting to come out in this group, sort of why we talked about it last time about, the way he was in the media and the way he spoke about certain players that decided not to come into camp because he was trying to build this grittiness and this culture that we have to approach every game like our life depends on it. And we saw that in the friendlies, and I know that we'll see it in these games. And I think, you're finally starting to see our golden age come of age and I feel like now is our time. I'm predicting right now, JJ. I think that this group goes further than any American team has gone, and I think it's gonna just. I'm ready to see soccer blow up in this country, and I know that this group is going to be the one that does it for us.
Man, to ride that wave this summer would be a lot of fun. And Friday night, thinking of those things, that mentality that you're talking about, Pochettino trying to bring that out, the edge maybe that this locker room was missing at times to be pushed a little bit further. And it's about focusing on that moment. And Roldan had another quote. He said, "We need to be a little bit savvier in the way we manage games, the way we take fouls, stay on the ground a little longer." I think these are things that we can learn from different nations, but Paraguay does a good job of that. And again, it goes right back to what we were discussing, seeing out games, how these games are going to be refed, how these teams are going to manage games. And especially this one, Paraguay, they had their last friendly 4-0 win over at Nicaragua, but their team, the 4-4-2, they're going to sit low in that defensive block. How does this United States team, when we've seen they kind of want to play fast up the wings, get that ball to those strikers, how do you break down a team like that?
I think you have to score early. I think we have to be fortunate early in the game to take one of our chances. I think the way that Christian Pulisic has been playing, we have to score early because then it forces the team to come out of their shell. I think the longer the game is a little bit of a stalemate, the longer it's a bit boring, it's a bit harder to break them down, then it falls in their hands. And so if we can get on the board early, opens them up, forces them to change their game plan a little bit. I think that's ideal scenario number one. But I think secondly, just trusting the fact that we have quality players all over the field. I'm guessing we're going to start in a 3-4-3, and that's Pulisic, obviously Balone, and then Timothy Weah. And the more that we can just push those guys into the wings, into the attack, combining, especially getting Christian inside early underneath Ballion, then I think our chances, the better we have.
Yeah, I think what's big too, Chris Richards, he's back training. He said he's ready to go. So, Richards back in there with Tim Ream. And I think that's going to be big to get a little bit more athleticism. You talked about it too with Tim Ream just being that steady presence. Can he break down attacks? But what does a player like Chris Richards bring to the table to kind of be a little that extra pop on that back three?
I think he just brings a big presence. Obviously, he's not only he's a big body at the center of the field, but he's a player that has established himself in Europe in a big league, playing in the Premier League, playing against some of the best strikers in the world. He's won trophies. I think he just gives us that presence of I've been on this stage before. I'm not afraid of it. I think he's going to be phenomenal in the air. I think that's a big thing, especially when you play opponents that are going to look to get in behind. He's going to be a great presence. I think he just settles us down in possession as well. I think his quality of finding a pass, especially breaking lines into midfield, is excellent. And I think the more we can get the ball off the back three and get it into Serginho Dest, into Anthony Robinson, and then break lines, possibly get into the 9 or into Christian, into Timothy Weah, I think we have a better chance. And I think Chris Richards does that really well. He doesn't take chances in possession. He looks to distribute, and he can break lines very well. I think that's what we're going to see from him.
Well, one thing that was evident, and you saw it against Senegal, or even giving up the early free kick opportunity to Germany, mistakes, you'll be penalized for them.
Yeah.
In the World Cup. And it was 2 moments that led to those goals for Senegal. Again, giving up that free kick early to Germany. I think that's going to be big. You mentioned Chris Richards not making passes that are going to be over his skis or put his team in a bad position. And I think that's going to be huge because one mistake goes the other way. And especially in the game like this against Paraguay, that they might sit back and they're going to look the Miguel Almiron. And he's going to try to be their difference maker. But if you give them an easy opportunity to finish, they're going to do that. And I think that's one thing that just really jumped out to me really about those 2 friendlies is just how quickly that those mistakes against Senegal turned into a goal, or a bad foul in a position, and Germany connects on the free kick.
Yeah, definitely. I'm curious to know your opinion on the Germany goal, the Kai Havertz goal early in the game, of the goalkeeper on that play. Anytime inside the 6-yard box and the goalkeeper's on his line, that for me was a question mark. I don't know if you felt the same way, JJ.
Yeah, it's one where as a fan watching it, you're like, thankfully this is a friendly and it's something that they can talk about, and it wasn't necessarily the opening game, but the little that I've been able to learn and take from everyone watching these games is whatever you do when you're that keeper, you got to be committed to your decision, whether you get it right or wrong. The hesitation is what is going to hurt you more than anything else.
Yeah, it's actually a great quote for about a goalkeeper. Do it and commit to it wholeheartedly. Yeah, I think when I saw that goal, I was like, exactly like what you said. It's man, it's not to feel the pressure, but one little moment can be the death of you in a way. Even not to be scared or timid, but
yeah, but it's going to be those moments of making the decision and then sticking with it. As we wrap this up, World Cup is upon us, and you've already made your statement. You think that this U.S. men's national team is going to go further than any team. What is it about this squad that makes you feel that way?
man, like I said before, it's our golden generation that has come of age. When I'm watching the documentary on HBO or wherever the documentary is on the U.S. men's national team about the Qatar World Cup, it just felt like there was a sense of just being young, a little bit inexperienced. Even though we have players that are playing all across Europe, it's like 4 years later they're still playing across Europe, and they're of age now, and they're not afraid. I think whether you love him or you hate him, I think Pochettino is bringing something out of this group that hasn't been brought out of us. Just the grit, the tenacity. And the belief, that you can go toe to toe with anyone in the world. I really feel like this is our time. This is our group to, man, like, why not? Miracles happen. Like, why couldn't we win the World Cup? Why couldn't we put 8 games together, and beat anybody? Why not? It can happen for us. Miracles happen. And I just think that this group is of age, and they're not afraid of anyone. And the culture, the belief behind them, that they know that they're going to have to work hard. I think, we've had tough results. We've lost many times as a country, but we know that if we, work hard and we are really diligent in those little moments, then things can go our way. And I think that's really what I'm excited to see. And I can't wait for tomorrow, but I'm more excited for Friday.
Can't wait, as Bart Scott once said, in the playoffs for the New York Jets. You can follow along, of course, the Pitch Me Your Thoughts podcast. Hit us up on the Instagram. Great stuff as well from Chris Wehan. If you want to become a better player, follow this dude on the Instagram. Of course, all of our content throughout the World Cup and beyond.